We're now in a position to actually tap our hole. So I'm going to put our plate that I want to thread into a vise. I'm going to clamp that up nice and tight and make sure it's fairly square and straight. So I'll make sure the top surface of the plate is sitting flat. Now I'm happy the vise is tight. The general idea behind what we're going to do is I have my taper tap in my tap bench here. This is going to sit into the hole and I'm going to begin driving it through the material. But what is very important is that I make sure the tap passes through the material straight. I want to make sure that that is 90 degrees and that is 90 degrees and our tap is passing into the plate nice and square. Before I actually start though, one thing that I do need to do to my tap is I need to add some lubrication to it. So I have some cutting and tapping compound. You could use cutting oil or any sort of lubricant for steel cutting. And I'm going to just dip my tap into the cutting fluid. There's a little bit on the end of my tap, it's enough to get started. I'm going to place my tap into the hole and I'm going to give it a bit of a turn. I'm going to apply some gentle downward pressure to either side of my tap bench. Make sure it's clamped tight, so with gentle pressure I'm going to turn. And I've completed a full rotation there, so I can feel the tap is starting to cut the material. I'm going to go again. It's still turning very easily, so I'm just making sure the material is biting. Okay. So we've started tapping the hole, but I need to check those 90-degree angles to make sure my tap is square. So I can use a engineer's square for that, simply by sitting it on the material, and I can visually see if my tap is sitting square. I can turn 90 degrees, and then I can check the additional dimension. Yeah, so I'm happy with how the tap is currently sitting. I'm now going to continue tapping the hole. Now, it's very important that you don't put too much load on the tap itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it half and then turn back a quarter. I'm going to turn it 3/4. I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm going to keep doing that. Now, I'm going to keep moving forward while it feels easy, and then as soon as it starts to feel a little bit tighter, and you'll feel this when you do it, I'm going to go backwards. And as I go backwards, I'll feel it get tight again, and then it'll get dead easy. The reason for that is it's breaking off the chips of material inside, so it's going tight, so I'm going to ease off. And as I'm easing off, I can feel it getting tight again. I'm going to push back past that little bit where it gets tight. And then I know that the chips are free. So keep going. I'm going to keep going. Forward, backward. And we are rotating clockwise here, as this is a clockwise thread. So most taps will be used clockwise, as most threads are clockwise. And then as I reach the end of the hole and the material starts to appear out the back, so if we have a look, we can see that the tap is starting to come out the back of the material. And we can see on there are lots of little flakes of steel. These are the flakes that the tap has cut away. And these are the chippings that we need to remove, and they're what we're breaking off when we go backwards. So let's reposition our plate. And keep going. It's got much easier now that I'm at the back of the plate. I can keep passing through. And I'm happy now that that thread has passed all the way through the plate. Now, this is quite a simple example because it's 6mm plate. What I would normally do in this circumstance is, if the material was a little bit thicker, I would take that out and then I would step up to our intermediate tap. Fortunately, after you've tapped the first hole, the second and third do get easier. So if we're going to use an intermediate tap, gently rest it on the hole and start to rotate it to make sure that it cuts correctly. And then we can allow our tap to cut all the way through. You'll see I put a tiny bit of cutting fluid on this tap again at the start. And yeah, and that's passed through very easily. I do need to be careful. If I turn it too much, the tap will fall through. And we have our tapped hole finished. Now, what I do need to be a little bit careful of is on the back of our hole, we may have some little burrs from the cutting. So there may be a sharp edge on there that needs removing with a file. I've got quite lucky in this instance and there's no sharp there. Now, I have my tapped hole, I have my clearance hole in the top plate, and I have my bolt. The only thing I need to be careful of now is that inside the tapped hole there may be chippings still, or a little bit of cutting fluid from the tapping process. So I just need to make sure that I clear out any chippings inside the hole. Material that may be in there. It looks pretty good now, so I'm going to go for it. So I'll place my clearance hole above. I can put my bolt into the hole, start to rotate it, and I can feel it has caught the thread below. Use an Allen key. There we go, nice and easy. And we've now assembled our two plates.